Welcome to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and today we have an enormous show ahead for you. We're gonna spend the whole 2 hours, even the bonus episode, just talking about Epstein and the Epstein files. That's it, nothing else. I'm kidding, don't have a panic attack. There's so much happening in the news. We're gonna actually start off by getting into this pretty incredible interview on Breaking Points featuring Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin. It was a bloodbath, okay? And I know I'm using colorful language here. There wasn't any violence, but in terms of the verbal outcome of that whole situation, it did not look good for Slotkin. We're gonna get into that first. But before we get to that, let me give you a little bit of a preview on the show. Later, we're also gonna talk about one of the stories that's really making my blood boil, and it has to do with an analysis in regard to just how many homes, residential real estate, is being snatched up by investors, because guess what? Our lawmakers haven't done a damn thing about it. That problem continues, and it is a big problem. So we're gonna talk about that likely in the second hour of the show. We're also gonna discuss how Israeli think tanks have already managed to infiltrate our media in ways that will surely make you uncomfortable. And by the way, social media platforms are not at all excluded from this strategy. So I'll give you the details on that and more. As always, just want to encourage you to like and share the stream if you're watching us live. It's a free and easy way to help support TYT. You can also support us by becoming a member by going to tyt.com/join. All right, well let's start with the hot goss, okay? Democrats, they're not bringing their best, certainly not when it comes to interviews on Breaking Points. That much was made clear yesterday when Breaking Points published this interview with Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin. Take a look.
I'm curious why you wanted to talk to us.
What do you mean?
Well, like we don't have actually a lot of senators, especially ones who have very different ideology than us. I don't really hear what you say if you are still supporting a genocide in Gaza.
But I go outside the Detroit area. It's not in the top 40.
You voted for some of the aid that's been used to massacre children and innocents.
Do you think AIPAC should register as a foreign lobby?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think you do. I think you do know the answer to that. Well, Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin made an appearance over at Breaking Points where she was grilled by hosts Sagar and Jetty and Krystal on a whole host of issues. Much of the conversation focused on the ongoing genocide in Gaza, but they also did touch on the Epstein files and the future of the Democratic Party. We'll have a link to the full interview in the description box if you want to watch the whole interview, and I do recommend it. It's not too long and it's worth watching in its entirety. But for the purposes of this discussion, I wanted to focus on the portion of their discussion that pertains to Gaza and the current behavior of the Israeli government and the IDF. Because to me, no story really highlights how little political labels make sense these days than the way Elissa Slotkin handled the questions coming from the likes of Sagar and Jetty and Krystal. And they asked fantastic questions, important questions, questions that I wish were almost a given, regardless of which media entity is interviewing her. But alas, you have to rely on independent media to ask the types of questions that you're going to hear answers for as we cover this story. So before we start on her views, on Elissa Slotkin's views, I think it's kind of important to give you a bit of a bio. Who is she? What does she represent? What has she done in her career prior to getting elected in office? Well, before starting her first term as a United States Senator this year, she was a congresswoman between the years of 2019 and 2025. She was inaugurated this year actually or sworn in this year to serve as her first term as US Senator. She represented Michigan's 7th district when she was serving in the House. She also worked for the CIA as an analyst and a Department of Defense official. During the George W. Bush administration, she worked on the Iraq portfolio for the National Security Council. Fun. And from 2015 to 2017, Slotkin was acting assistant secretary of defense for international security affairs, where one of her responsibilities was securing Israel's qualitative military edge. Now, as we go through all these various clips from the interview, I just want you to keep in the back of your mind the fact that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican, someone who we have been pretty vicious toward on this show, was the first Republican congresswoman to call what's happening in Gaza a genocide. And she did so in the context of skewering her Republican colleague in the House, Randy Fine. I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind as we hear from a Democratic lawmaker about what's currently transpiring in Gaza and the behavior of Israel and the IDF. Now look, she has consistently voted in favor of Israel or in favor of things that Israel wants. She's consistently voted yes to more military aid to Israel and opposes conditioning US security aid to Israel. So offensive weapons, no problem, we're not gonna condition it. She has voted in favor of a resolution to essentially equate anti-Zionism or criticism of the Israeli government to anti-Semitism. She did vote in favor of the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. And she, of course, opposes the boycott, divest movement, otherwise known as BDS. Now, with all of that in mind, maybe you'll understand why it is that she wants to downplay the severity of not only what's happening in Gaza, but the severity of anger that many Americans, especially Democratic voters, are feeling in regard to what's transpiring in Gaza. Because remember, we're funding it. Whether you want to support it or not, you have no choice. Okay, your tax dollars are funding the slaughter that's currently taking place in Gaza as we speak. So with that in mind, let's see how serious Slotkin finds this to be.
While, I would love to debate you on your healthcare policy. I think we need Medicare for all. You think public option, your housing policy, et cetera. I'm just being really real with you. I don't really hear what you say if you are still supporting a genocide in Gaza.
One of the proudest moments that I had in my last election, where I just won on the same ballot as Donald Trump, was that I won a majority of Jewish voters in Michigan. We have a large Jewish population. And I won Dearborn Heights, and Hamtramck, the 3 Muslim-dominated cities. I'm a Middle East analyst by training. And so what I tried to do and why I think I managed to win both those communities is call balls and strikes, literally up to this week. But it's not the only issue that my voters in Michigan care about.
Of course.
And the online world is extremely focused on this, but that doesn't always represent the majority. But I go outside the Detroit area, it's not in the top 40.
Wow, you won your election, that's great. What does that have to do with your views on what's happening in Gaza? And you call balls and strikes, what balls and strikes are you calling? You consistently support anything and everything Israel wants. Sure, there might be some rhetorical pushback, but you can take that rhetorical pushback and you can shove it. It's as relevant and as valuable as the rhetorical pushback Joe Biden engaged in as Israel was carrying out, the initial phases of its ethnic cleansing slaughter campaign in Gaza. What balls and strikes? Show me an example of Slotkin in any way through her actions checking the Israeli government, because I haven't seen it. And to say, most Americans don't really care about this issue. You're trying to downplay it? The American government right now is literally taking resources out of the pockets of hardworking Americans, whether they like it or not, and funneling it to a terroristic government who's carrying out the ethnic cleansing and genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. They're literally building a concentration camp as we speak. Okay, the days of trying to let me tiptoe around this. Let me try to strategize around this. Let me not upset people who, for whatever reason, live in the United States but think Israel is the most important thing in the world. Let me not upset those folks. No, now is the time. Now is the time to ask yourself whether you have a moral compass or not. And honestly, after watching this interview, no moral compass, especially as it pertains to Israel. It's disgusting. So she's also lying, and you'll notice that it's a theme throughout this conversation. We'll get to her other lies in a minute, but since she's talking about the fact that most voters don't care, it's not even in their top 40. It's not even in their top 40. Really, it's not? Okay. Well, how do Democratic voters feel about what's happening in Gaza right now? Turns out the latest Gallup poll found that, oh wow, actually, No, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's not that bad. It's just that only 8% of Democratic voters support what the Israeli government is doing. So 32% of Americans, let's put that back up. Let's put it back up, put it back up. So only 32% of Americans approve of Israel's military action taken in Gaza. That's actually down 10 percentage points since last September. So only a minority of American voters overall support what's going on. But when it comes to Democrats, only 8% support Israel's actions. The lowest approval rating to date. Compare that to 25% of independents and sadly, a robust 71% of Republicans. Turn off the Fox News. Your government's taking money out of your pocket and funneling it for the mass slaughter of children. You want to talk about being pro-life? How is it pro-life when your money is supporting the slaughter of countless children in Gaza? Unbelievable, but anyway, not a big deal. Most people don't care. Most people don't have strong thoughts about this, not even in their top 40. Elissa Slotkin is really concerned about the economy. She wants to make the economy better for Michiganders. I mean, she hasn't really proven it in her time in the House of Representatives or her short stint in the Senate so far. But I care about the economy is a great, it's a great talking point to like pivot to when you don't want to talk about the fact that you're aiding and abetting the slaughter of innocent people in Gaza. But we have more. So the political angle, I just want to be clear, really does pale in comparison to the moral bankruptcy of continuing to support Israel's slaughter campaign. That's what I think. So a lot of these politicians, they're only thinking about, okay, well, how is this gonna affect me politically? And I know that's what Elissa Slotkin is thinking about. It's what every politician is thinking about. God forbid, for a second, they allow themselves to have a principled or moral view of something that's happening in the world. But again, the moral bankruptcy of it all, to me, is a big deal. So is Slotkin willing to ever do anything to check Israel? And I'm really glad that that question was asked in the context of this interview. So let's take a look at what she had to say about that.
You have backed Israel, as far as I can tell, from your voting record at almost every turn. You voted for a definition of anti-Semitism that would, codify anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. You voted as a member of the House to sanction the ICC for indicting Benjamin Netanyahu, who you just admitted is a war criminal, by your own words. So are you going to join Senator Angus King, Senator Bernie Sanders in saying no more aid to this country that is committing war crimes against innocent civilians?
I think the first thing, if you're asking about what to do with power, and I would offer that right now Democrats own nothing in Washington. So
don't play powerless with me. Though. You're a United States senator. There are things you can do.
There really isn't much to add to that because I think Krystal did a good job responding to her pathetic answer by saying, "Don't play powerless with me." I mean, it's just hilarious. Just a second ago, Senator Slotkin was bragging about her big accomplishment in getting the majority of Jews and Arabs in her state to support her for her Senate seat. I'm so big and powerful. I did such an amazing job getting elected. Look at me. Oh, you want me to do something? I have no power. I have no power. I'm just a United States senator. Okay. Slotkin had a pretty bad response to a question about whether or not she supports continuing to send military aid to Israel, especially since, rhetorically she has pushed back a little bit. She did call Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal. Now, if I think someone's a war criminal and I'm representing people either as a senator or a member of the House of Representatives, I would never in a million years take money out of the pockets of my constituents and then funnel it to the war criminal. But what about Slotkin? Would she do that?
But will you cut off aid to Israel so long as they're committing crimes against humanity?
There is a difference between a weapon to protect a country from incoming missiles versus other type. Offensive and defensive weapons are different.
So would you support offensive weapons ban? Like, would you stop any offensive aid to Israel?
That certainly, to me, would be a place to look, but I'm not gonna cut off a blanket next sale on a defensive weapon that comes through. No.
I also reject that because, for example, if Senator Slotkin, if you were asked to support defensive weapons for Iran, defensive weapons for Russia, you wouldn't back that.
No, but Iran, but
they're defensive. They're just protecting civilians, right? So how is it different?
But because Israel's being shot at.
Well, so is Russia.
So is Iran. Yeah. So is Russia.
Ukraine's shooting at Russia right now. Right?
I'm sorry. This is the difference between allies, partners, and adversaries.
So
what
if
they're
Nazi
doing
Germany,
every single day,
if Nazi Germany said we want defensive aid, it's just you have to see where they're all weapons that are being shipped. In another context,
the weapons that they're using right now, to be honest, if you look at what's happening on the ground, the military part of this conflict is, for the most part, over. What they are doing,
Senator,
every single day is around aid.
Okay, I want to be clear about Senator Slotkin. She will continue to vote yes on every bill to send more military aid to Israel, whether it has to do with defensive weaponry or offensive weaponry. Okay, it doesn't matter. She's gonna vote yes, and her voting record shows she is in favor. Okay, she will vote yes. Now, putting that aside, let's just briefly discuss defensive weapons. Now, I'm on the record months ago, last year, saying that I support continuing, providing what's needed for the Iron Dome, providing what's needed in terms of defensive weaponry. I have since changed my mind, and this is a perfect opportunity to talk about that. The reason why I've changed my mind is because I do believe that Israel is carrying out a genocide right now. And I do equate the current Israeli government to Nazis. Why would I want to provide resources to a regime like that is essentially carrying out the mass slaughter of innocent people, not just in Gaza, not just in the West Bank, but also in neighboring countries? They've bombed Syria, they've bombed Lebanon. It just goes on and on and on. And guess what? Why do they feel emboldened to do that? Because they can do it with impunity. Israel gets to operate on the international stage very differently than everyone else. They are held to a much lower standard. What international laws? What war crimes? No, Israel's special. They get to do whatever they want. And there are never any consequences. Now, usually any other country on the international stage would know if you attack another sovereign country, there's very likely gonna be blowback. Okay, that information, that fear, that prediction usually plays into the equation and the decision making. With Israel, we just keep fueling, the war with, enhancing their defensive capabilities, so they get to do whatever they want. They get to attack whoever they want. They get to kill whoever they want with no consequences, ever. And I'm not okay with that. So I am 100% against funding anything for Israel at this point. If they care about their civilians, maybe they would rethink what they've been carrying out. Maybe they would rethink attacking their neighbors. Maybe they would reconsider openly bragging about starving innocent people to death, as Bezalel Smotrich and Ben Gvir so openly do on a regular basis. But right now, they're not reconsidering that. They're acting like unhinged genocidal lunatics because we have empowered them to do so. Now, maybe Slotkin feels this way because she doesn't see the mass slaughter that the IDF is engaging in for what it really is. And this part of the conversation made that clear to me.
Is it
so
a
that
genocide?
People don't starve. I don't know that I'd use that term.
Why?
But it is violating the law of war.
Why don't you use the term though?
Because I think, it's, to me, do I think it's ethnic cleansing, which is what I think of in genocide? I don't know if it meets that definition.
They're announcing
but didn't you say it earlier that it was ethnic cleansing? You said that they wanted to force it. This is open from the Israeli government. Like, they're saying it. Their Minister of National Security, they come out and they're like, we don't need shells. We need shells, not food, and we need to encourage migration.
Look,
they're saying
you're not going to get me to support what the Israeli government is saying right now. Right. I think the point I was trying to make is it's not just about we have relationships with nations over time, regardless of who their leaders are.
That was a great catch by Sagar Enjeti because she did call it ethnic cleansing earlier in the interview when it was convenient for her to do so. But then, ooh, it came up again and it was inconvenient for her. Ooh, what am I gonna do? You have two humanitarian organizations within Israel, B'Tselem being one of them, by the way, who have now called this a genocide. You have an Israeli genocide scholar who we covered on the show just last week or the week before, calling this what it is, a genocide. A scholar, an Israeli scholar. He wrote a piece about it, an opinion piece in the New York Times, which I hope you all read. You have two former Israeli prime ministers who were not doves, who committed war crimes of their own, calling this what it is. But you can't get a Democratic senator to at least call it ethnic cleansing, which by the way, the Israeli government is openly announcing. They're openly announcing it. Now, I'm pretty black-pilled at this point. I think people in the audience, and I don't blame you for this, everyone goes through their own journey, and I think a lot of you are actually gonna get to where I'm at right now, and I don't envy you because it's a pretty dark place. But I'm so black-pilled that the parties mean nothing to me, nothing. Democrat, Republican, who cares? They mean nothing to me, okay? And the reason why they mean nothing to me is because of, honestly, the kind of crap that I heard from Bernie Sanders today in his interview with Caitlin Collins. He has the right ideas. He wants to stop funding the weapons toward Israel. I mean, the defensive weapons I'm curious about, but nonetheless, policy-wise, but he doesn't want to call it a genocide. You can't respond to it effectively unless you call it what it is, unless you understand the real severity of it. But who knows, maybe Senator Sanders and maybe Senator Slotkin just know better than the Israeli genocide scholar who was willing to call what's happening in Gaza what it is. And it is real pathetic when someone I have admired in the political space for so long, Senator Bernie Sanders, gets outflanked by the likes of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who on the House floor called out Israel's apartheid. And just this week, in her scathing response to that disgusting, grotesque Republican Congressman Randy Fine, referred to what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. Where is this country's moral compass? That's what I want to know. Finally, she meaning Senator Slotkin, engaged in a bit of a lie about where she gets her money from, how her campaigns are funded. Let's take a quick look at that.
Do you think AIPAC should register as a foreign lobby?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that I know plenty of people who think they should. You know, I don't.
It's kind of a cop-out answer, don't you think?
I mean, yeah. I literally, I just guess I'd have to look at the definition. I certainly have had my tough moments with that organization, and
so you stop accepting their funding.
You gotta get your facts straight. I have not been endorsed by AIPAC. I have not. I'm sorry. I was the first Jew elected to the Senate that was not endorsed by any Jewish group. AIPAC, J Street.
You've been the recipient of their funds.
In 2018, when I first ran, people who were members, yes, but I've not been endorsed since then.
You know, telling Krystal Ball that she needs to get her facts straight is rich. Especially as Senator Slotkin is just lying to everyone's faces. So she makes it seem as though she received some campaign contributions from AIPAC back in 2018, but she had a real rough go at things. You know, she had a tough relationship with them. You know, they probably didn't fund her after that, except they did. And it wasn't just about AIPAC. When it comes to the Israel lobby, AIPAC of course gets a lot of attention because it's the biggest. But there's all sorts of other groups, pro-Israel groups, that fund our politicians. So let's talk a little bit about how much Elissa Slotkin, throughout her political career, has received from the Israel lobby. Oh, so there you go. $656,095. Nice. So up through March of this year, that's how much money she has received from the lobby. Now, who knows? Maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe that was all the money she received up until 2018, and then after that it was over. Except no, that's not the case. So she took in quite a bit of money from the Israel lobby in 2022. Fascinating. So apparently she took in $85,550 from J Street PAC, $22,000 from the Pro-Israel America PAC, and $14,906 from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Nice. Meaning that she was, of course, taking cash from the Israel lobby well after 2021, in 2022. So those campaign contributions, I mean, they pay off, and her voting record makes that abundantly clear. Since the war started, Elissa Slotkin has voted for measures to fund Israel's military, impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court over arrest warrants for Israeli officials, including the very official that she has referred to as a war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister. She's a loathsome, pathetic person. What do you stand for, Slotkin? You're gonna do an interview where you pretend like you give a damn about the economy? What the hell have you done for the economy? What the hell have you done to improve the lives of Michiganders? Pathetic. Let me read the rest of that graphic for you. She forbid the State Department to cite statistics from the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry and equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. That's who Elissa Slotkin is. Now, there was an interesting headline in the news today. I don't really care about it. It's not really gonna go anywhere. I think it's just meant for positive PR, and I'm not gonna give it to her. But she is part of a group of congressional Democrats who have introduced the Ban Corporate PACs Act. The legislation would ban corporations from establishing and managing a PAC or soliciting contributions from stakeholders and eliminate existing corporate PACs. They know it's not gonna go anywhere. I doubt they're even gonna try to fight for it to see if maybe they can get some Republicans on board to pass it in the Senate. It's not going anywhere. Let's not be stupid. And I don't know if this was done in an effort to maybe launder Slotkin's reputation after she was essentially embarrassed with that shellacking on Breaking Points, but she should be embarrassed. Because when you make clear to everyone else in the world, when you make clear to your constituents, when you make clear to Democrats, Democratic voters, that you have no moral compass, you have no actual values, and you're just gonna go along with the status quo, even though the status quo means mass slaughter of innocents. There's no, BS bill that's gonna launder your reputation. Okay, politicians like that are dead to me. I don't know about you guys. You can write in and let me know, but that's where I'm at with Elissa Slotkin. And great job by Breaking Points. They asked the right questions. It was a fantastic interview. We'll include a link in the description box so you can watch the entirety of the conversation. For now, we gotta take a break. We'll be right back. In our Twitch community, C451 says, Anna, I nearly shut off the stream after I made that joke about how the whole show is gonna be about Epstein. I don't think we have a single Epstein story in the rundown today, to the chagrin of those who actually enjoy those stories, but we've got a lot of other things that I wanted to cover today. And I'm taking way too long, I can't believe that was a 28-minute segment. Javier Najjar says, conservative Democrat, almost a Republican, meaning Slotkin. David Michael says, Slotkin is so out of touch, you can tell by her answers. She's so out of touch that she didn't even, I feel like she didn't even take the time to understand or research what she was getting herself into. I think that her staff pitched her on Breaking Points and she thought, oh, this might be like a centrist-y show because it's hosted by a conservative and someone on the left. No, that's not, you don't know what you're walking into, lady. Like, you should do your research. Anyway, Marco Antonio says, Marge has more balls than most Democrats in terms of Israel and Gaza, just shows how weak Democrats are. What do Democrats stand for though? Guys, I'm not hating on Democrats just to hate on them, but genuinely, like I was a lifelong Democrat, I really believed in that party and I just couldn't take it anymore. That's why I'm an independent now. Okay, it doesn't mean I'm a right winger. It doesn't mean that I've signed on to Republican policies, but what do Democrats stand for? What are they offering you? I really, really need you guys to ask that question, because unless we're willing to be real about the current state of the Democratic Party, ain't no way we're gonna have a good option to defeat the right. Let's keep it real. What do they stand for? Rodrigo Chavez says, this interview was rough to see. Slotkin is compromised. She serves her donors, AIPAC. I mean, I think the interview did speak for itself, even though I took a long time to talk about it. David Michael says, I don't think Slotkin realized what she got herself into. I think she went into this thinking she could get away with what she had to say. I don't think she realized she would be getting pushback. Yeah, and it was a masterclass in interviewing. That was so well done. Great job to Breaking Points. Let's go to Noel Silva. Anna is coming in hot. I'm here until the bye-bye today. Thank you. The Truth Dragon, NJ, New Jersey, NJ09 says, Slotkin sounds like she's giving her old boss at the CIA her weekly report. That's hilarious. All right, let's go over to our super chats where Centuri says, Democrats are completely lost and without morals. That appears to be the case, and it doesn't make me happy. I don't like being black-pilled. I wish I had, I don't know, a guiding star, someone to support, but what's been happening in the Middle East has been very enlightening in all the wrong ways. R. Stone says, the staffer who pitched the interview is probably fired by now. Doesn't matter, they did God's work. There needs to be clear and distinct message for the 2026 primary. No shenanigans like primary 2024. We're paying attention. I love to hear that, I really do. All right, one more comment. This is from Titan. Slotkin seems as if she lives in another universe, and we gotta get back to the show, so I'll see you there. I got a great question from one of our viewers. Stranik says, hi Anna, in addition to running for exercise, I was wondering if you ever do any of your former ballet warm-up routines. I understand they're brutal, but great for promoting body control, flow, and obviously flexibility. I do. I'm very tempted to buy point shoes again. Those are the shoes that allow you to actually dance on your tippy toes. It's a little bit risky. I haven't danced on points since I was like 20, 21. But man, do I miss it. Ballet is fantastic exercise and I loved it. But anyway, thanks for the question. Now we're gonna move on to our next story.
Violence in a Malkeh village close to Hebron. An Israeli from Carmel settlement in the south of the West Bank brandishes a pistol. Yinon Levy later said he opened fire, fearing his life was in danger. The confrontation left its victims. 2 people wounded and 1 killed. Olda Hathaleen, a 31-year-old teacher who'd worked on the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land.
Well, as the people of Gaza starve to death or die as a result of Israeli shelling, terror also continues to reign in the occupied West Bank. Now, the footage that you just witnessed was of Israeli settler Yinon Levy, who actually murdered a Palestinian activist, killed him, shot him to death. The activist's name is Olda Hathaleen, and this horrible, tragic, disgusting event took place on Monday of this week. Now, Olda also went by the name Auda. So if you see that in reports and you're wondering like what's up with the name, he goes by both names, or he went by both names before he was tragically killed by this terrorist in the West Bank. Now, here are some clips for the trailer of the film No Other Land, which he actually helped to produce. Take a look.
مسافة رياضة هي المكان اللي كبرت فيه. بداية تصويري هي بداية نهايتنا. جرافات؟ أنا من سلامة خير.
This is what's happening in my village now. Soldiers are everywhere.
يكون كثير حلو إذا نسيت.
So that film did win an Oscar for Best Documentary, and it's about a Palestinian man who teamed up with an Israeli journalist by the name of Yuval Abraham. Abraham is the one who first reported that the Palestinian activist Nathalin had been shot and killed by that settler. So Ala al-Hathalin, Hathalin's cousin, the victim's cousin, told CNN that Levy was known to the community because he always attacks us. And last year, Levy was actually sanctioned by both the European Union and the Biden administration, which was the right thing to do, in the very least. But things did turn around during the Trump administration. So in its initial sanctions announcement in April of 2024, the US Department of Treasury, State Department said that Levy regularly led groups of violent extremists who engaged in actions creating an atmosphere of fear in the West Bank. It added that groups led by Levy assaulted Palestinian civilians, threatened them with additional violence if they did not leave their homes, burned their fields, and destroyed their property. And they're emboldened to do this by the Israeli government. I want to be very clear about that. You know, oftentimes when there are reports of Israeli settlers engaging in violence in the West Bank, it's reported in a way to make it appear as though like, oh, this is just an unhinged group of people. This is not something that's endorsed or supported by the Israeli government. No, not true. Israeli authorities literally pay them for every home they destroy in the West Bank. The IDF stands by and essentially intervenes only to protect the settlers as they're stealing people's homes, running Palestinians out of their rightful homes, demolishing people's homes. Like, it is so unbelievably cruel. Imagine seeing a family in tears like that as they're watching everything they have be burnt to the ground by these terrorists. And these terrorists love it, they enjoy it. It brings joy to their hearts because they're evil people. President Donald Trump revoked all sanctions on Israeli settlers because he likes to be Benjamin Netanyahu's bitch. It's embarrassing for the American people that we have a president who's essentially a bitch for a foreign government, but here we are. Donald Trump, Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Strong and Brave, Mr. I got grazed in the ear by a bullet when someone was trying to assassinate me, but I'm so tough, I fight, right? Except when it comes to the Israelis. When it comes to the Israelis, he puts the leash right on, makes sure that's nice and tight so you get dog walked by Benjamin Netanyahu, like a bitch. Now, Levy was arrested on Monday. Israeli police said in a statement without naming him that an Israeli citizen was taken into custody for questioning on suspicion of reckless conduct, resulting in death and unlawful use of a firearm. He's a murderer, he's a terrorist murderer. But on Tuesday, literally the next day, he was freed. He's on house arrest. Let's keep it real. What is house arrest? Do you think he's got like an ankle monitor on and the Israeli authorities are keeping a close eye on him? No. I'm sure he's free to terrorize more innocent Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. That's who these people are. I'm not making anything up. Everything that I'm sharing with you is easily verifiable. And so I just need to understand something. Am I supposed to pretend like these are the good guys? And that anyone who calls out this disgusting, deplorable, unhinged behavior is an anti-Semite? I mean, it's the crazy. Don't let anyone silence you. At this point, in this genocide, do not let anyone silence you. In fact, you will regret it if you're aiding and abetting or providing cover for modern day Nazis. So either don't say anything at all if you're afraid, but if you want to speak out, now is the time to do it. So according to a report in 972 magazine co-written by Audra Abraham and journalist Oren Ziv, Levy is the founder of this group. It's called Michurim Farm Outpost, and owner of an earthworks company regularly contracted by the Israeli authorities to demolish Palestinian property. Yeah. And he claimed that he opened fire because he had been assaulted by dozens of rioters throwing stones. He has a gun. He has a gun. And I really wish every single Palestinian, including the kids, had guns of their own. Because honestly, what's currently happening in the West Bank, it's been eye-opening for me. They have no ability to defend themselves because they don't have weapons. They have stones, but what is a stone gonna do when you're being confronted with an unhinged maniac who's armed with a gun? And it was BS. I mean, okay, so they did an investigation. 972 magazine, along with Local Call, examined approximately 20 videos of the incident. And unsurprisingly, they found that the opposite was true. The settler had attacked the Palestinians first. Do we really need an investigation at this point? Do we really need an investigation? I mean, I'm glad they did it. We got confirmation. Metadata from the video footage shows that the shooting occurred at 5:29 p.m. 4 minutes earlier, Levy entered privately owned Palestinian land, accompanied by an excavator driver. The driver plowed through olive trees, destroyed the village's fence and main water pipe, and attempted to run over Hathaline's cousin, Ahmad, striking him in the head with the excavator's arm and knocking him unconscious. Only then did several other residents begin throwing stones at the excavator. So Levy's claim of self-defense was complete and utter BS. And it gets even more unlikely when you consider the following. According to Haaretz, an Israeli-American activist at the scene said that Levy told him that he's happy he killed Hathaline. Of course he is, he's a terrorist. He's a terrorist who is supported by the Israeli government, which is aided and abetted by our government here in the United States. Our government takes our money and funnels it to a terrorist regime that loves to terrorize innocent people and steal their land. That's the reality of the situation. I also just want to end this story by saying I'm a very happy person with a happy marriage and a wonderful personal life. I am not suicidal. We gotta take a break, we'll be right back. .0083 writes in, and thank you for writing in with this message in particular, because sometimes I feel very alone and I feel like maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm the crazy one, maybe I'm the one who's being unfair. And I couldn't figure out what Democrats stand for either. That's why I left them 30 years ago. And I've been an independent ever since then. Yeah, and other people are writing in to say, like, we don't really have a left wing in America, and I agree with that. We have two right wings. One is kind of moderate, and the other one is further to the right. I think I overall agree with that. It's just that when it comes to the big issues that matter, there isn't really any daylight between the two parties. When it comes to Israel, is there really any daylight? Honestly. And there's a great documentary that just came out by Frontline. It's a PBS program. I say great because there was some information in there that I didn't know about, specifically about how the Obama administration handled Israel, especially in 2015 when the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, was signed. And look, Obama was willing to go behind Israel's back to do what he thought was the right thing to do. But the Biden administration, aiding and abetting. The only time Biden had any brakes on that car was when it came to going to war with Iran. I mean, obviously Trump took that bait. That whole saga isn't over yet. Anyone who thinks like, oh yeah, we just struck their nuclear sites and now it's over, it's not over. It's not over. So anyone who's getting cocky about that, don't get too cocky. I want it to be over, obviously, but you're already starting to see the stories percolate about like, oh, we don't know, maybe we need to go in again. We don't know if the nuclear sites have been destroyed. You get the picture. Rage Rock for Now says Slotkin will probably go on Bill Maher's show within the next 3 weeks to get the softball interview she seemingly expected from Breaking Points. I would not be surprised. But I gotta say, look, I know that there was a contentious, back and forth between Krystal and Kyle and Cenk, and I really didn't appreciate that because I think it was unfair. But putting that aside, when you do good work, you deserve all the praise in the world, and that was an amazing interview. That interview is the kind of interview that makes me proud to be in independent media. That's what independent media is supposed to be about. So it was great to see. All right, let's move on over to our new members. Jonathan Kurtz became a TYT executive producer. Welcome. I'm an executive producer too, but not the fun kind, okay? The kind that's gotta do the grunt work. Welcome, thank you for becoming a member. And Glenn, Roy, and Muff. Vegan writes in and says, I don't believe the US government as a whole has ever acted morally. I mean, that I can definitely agree with. Obviously, there's always gonna be bad actors in the government. But generally speaking, there have been examples of the US doing the right thing. I think our role in World War II was the right role. But lately, not so much. We've always had to fight to get any humanity out of the government. Yeah, you're right. And look, I don't know if anything that I'm trying out is gonna work, but I do believe in people power, and you can't build people power if you're convinced that half of the country, half of the voters in the country are irredeemable and you could never work with them, which is why I'm trying to have conversations. I am not in any way sacrificing my values. Clearly, I care about my values deeply. But if we don't believe in the American people, and if we don't have conversations and find ways to work together, we're doomed. We're definitely doomed. Because these politicians are getting away with literal murder, okay? It's crazy. So anyway, thank you for writing in. I'll read more of your comments in a minute. For now, I wanna do a few more stories before Cenk comes in and joins me for the second hour. So let's talk about the media.
I grew up in a traditional Jewish household. But in an untraditional decision, after graduating from Michigan, I made Aliyah and enlisted in the Israel Defense Forces. I spent the next 2 years serving as a Madrichat Shirion, an instructor in the Armored Corps. To many, this might seem like a contradiction. For a woman who identifies as liberal and progressive to be a Zionist so committed as to join the IDF, for me, these two identities go hand in hand.
And now this ex-IDF instructor has been hired to serve as TikTok's so-called hate speech manager in order to censor what she deems to be anti-Semitic content on the platform. Now, the US government didn't manage to ban TikTok, and we all knew what they wanted to ban TikTok about, right? Like, it wasn't actually because they're worried about data collection by a foreign actor. You think our government cares about our data being collected? Our data gets collected every minute of every day. Whether it's a foreign actor or not, our government officials could not care less. But they really didn't like the fact that a lot of young people were sharing information about the war crimes Israel is committing on TikTok. And that content goes viral. A lot of young people rely on social media, for better or worse, for their information. And our government officials don't like that. Former Republican Senator Mitt Romney said that on the record. Even Nancy Pelosi alluded to that in a statement. So now, if you're not gonna ban TikTok, why not get a former IDF soldier to serve as the top censor for the platform? Fantastic. So TikTok's new hire is a woman by the name of Erica Mindell, and after serving in the IDF, she worked in the Biden White House, because of course she did. According to Jewish Insider, the streaming platform enlisted Erica Mindell, a former State Department contractor who worked for Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, the Biden administration special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, to join TikTok's global public policy and government affairs team. Now, if you're wondering, like, what exactly is she gonna do in this role for TikTok? Like, exactly what is she gonna focus on? In her newly created role, meaning this role was created specifically to censor criticism of the Israeli government, let's keep it real. Mindell will develop and drive the company's positions on hate speech, seek to influence legislative and regulatory frameworks, and analyze hate speech trends with a particular focus on anti-Semitic content, among other duties cited in an official job description shared by TikTok. Great. You know, it's interesting because as we all know, I mean, anyone who spent any time on social media can tell you there's all sorts of terrible people who say terrible things. It can be sexist, it could be racist, it's just gross, right? Some people like to use social media to air their disgusting grievances. But never have I seen an effort to ensure that there's like a new role created, a top censor role, to ensure that these bad actors don't engage in racism, sexism, whatever. But anti-Semitism, we got to create a role for that, right? And by the way, I detest anti-Semitism as I do racism and sexism and all of the other stuff. But this ain't about actual anti-Semitism. This is about protecting good old Israel as they're carrying out a genocide in Gaza and as they continue on with their campaign to annex the West Bank and steal the land in Gaza. That's what this is really about. Okay, so she also spent some time working in Trump's second administration as well. Mindell, who previously served as an assistant director of program development at the American Jewish Committee, had briefly worked for the special envoy's office in the second Trump administration before she was finally hired by TikTok. Now look, she's doing this out of the kindness of her own heart. You know, she just wants to make sure that TikTok is a friendly place for people of all backgrounds to create content, share content. It's not like she's gonna get a fat salary for doing this, right? Except she is. This is amazing. And look, TikTok's a private company. They can pay her whatever they want. TikTok's a private company, they can hire a censor if they want. I obviously have a problem with it because I can see the tea leaves, read the tea leaves, and I see that this is really just about shutting down a certain form of speech that a foreign government doesn't like. But her base salary for censoring people for criticizing Israel will be anywhere between $178,000 and $338,000, or I'm sorry, $330,480. And that's according to an official listing for the job. But she was gonna get hired for the job like as the listing was posted. I want to be clear about that because the role was created after a high-level meeting took place between the Anti-Defamation League. They organized the meeting with higher ups over at TikTok. And Mindell was part of this whole process. So TikTok last year complied with demands from the Israeli firm Cyberwell to censor content exposing the Israeli government's lies about Hamas committing mass rape on October 7th. Remember that lie? Now look, Hamas did carry out rapes, but mass rape has not been proven. And this organization wanted to censor content that exposed that the Israeli government was lying about mass rape. So journalist Li Fong actually wrote about it a year ago. Here's the piece in case you want to read it for yourselves. Cyberwell is an NGO, partner trust and safety org, working with Meta and TikTok to censor criticism of Israel, including accurate critiques of the IDF. The group claims to be independent, but deleted records show it is managed by former Israeli intelligence. Fantastic. Many younger Americans, by the way, as I mentioned, do rely on social media to stay updated on the reality of world events, because you're not going to get the reality consuming corporate news here in the United States. And by the way, Dropsite News is also reporting that unfortunately some of the independent media has been infiltrated by self-interested actors, okay, compromised essentially by pro-Israeli forces. So a piece written for Dropsite News that I highly recommend you read. A pro-Israel nonprofit is funneling news content through Barry Weiss's Free Press. Seems like the Free Press ain't so free. As Weiss's new organization explores a deal to sell to CBS, much of its content on the Middle East is produced by a shadowy think tank tied to pro-Israel advocacy. So the organization in question is the Center for Peace Communications, CPC. The CPC is a nonprofit organization whose board of directors includes multiple senior figures drawn from pro-Israel think tanks in Washington, D.C., including the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Now, if you're wondering where this nonprofit gets its funding from, well, it is financially backed by the likes of the Adelson Family Foundation, which gave the CPC $150,000 in 2023 alone. Now, the CPC has helped the Free Press produce reporting on the Middle East that is aligned with the shifting strategic goals and public relations needs of the Israeli government, with the organization cited as the source for Free Press content on the region in a steady stream of stories since 2023. Is anyone really surprised by any of this? I mean, the coverage of what's happening in the Middle East on the Free Press has been a joke, like completely biased. I mean, so much so that they were putting out pieces claiming that the starvation campaign in Gaza was a myth until they just couldn't deny it anymore because the evidence was so overwhelming. That's what you left the New York Times for, Barry, for this? The Free Press interview, I'll give you an example. They did interview this guy, Yasser Abu Shabab, okay? So the Free Press interview with Shabab offered him a chance to sell himself as this anti-terror militia, or his anti-terror militia, called the Popular Forces, while responding to charges that he was tied to ISIS and had previously been jailed on drug trafficking charges. So the interview was all about laundering his reputation. All this talk is lies and slander against us, Shabab told Free Press in an audio message and video later posted online. We categorically reject this extremist ideology. We believe in peace and we believe in secular governance. Now, why is this guy's reputation being laundered? Why would the Free Press even care to do that? Why would the CPC, this Israel-backed, nonprofit, want to do that? Well, it turns out that Yasser Abu Shabab is a Bedouin who leads the Israeli-backed militia in the Gaza Strip, and basically, Israel wants to launder this guy's reputation because they're supporting him and whatever he's up to in Gaza. By the way, Israel is currently funding militia groups. Okay, this is also well documented in Gaza. Just like Netanyahu facilitated the funding of Hamas. I don't know what else to say. Like it's so what's happening is so gross, and I do feel that our country right now, whether you're talking about our media or our government, and at this point even our social media platforms, is occupied by a foreign government, because it literally is. It literally is. Last week, the Wall Street Journal also published an op-ed written by Shabab expressing his readiness to support Israel's takeover of Gaza, notwithstanding previous Israeli news reports that the would-be militant leader is illiterate. So the Free Press is, again, helping this guy launder his reputation. Now, let's talk a little more about CPC, this organization. It turns out the founder and president of CPC is a guy by the name of Joseph Broad. Now, who's Joseph Broad? I mean, I hadn't heard of him before. Turns out that he's a piece of crap, all on his own right, and even pled guilty to charges of smuggling stolen antiques out of Iraq following the US invasion of that country in 2003. Okay, total scumbag. So in the Free Press video detailing Shabab's plans to take over control of the Gaza Strip with Israeli support, Broad appears as a commentator defending Shabab from allegations of extremist ties, stating that, quote, "I am fairly confident that he is not ISIS," though conceding that one cannot preclude that he may have had ties with the group in the past. Amazing. Well, all of this is super relevant on its own, but it's extra relevant when you consider the fact that Bari Weiss is currently in talks with CBS to sell the Free Press to CBS for a whopping $250 million. Even though that amount far exceeds the roughly $15 million a year that it is estimated to drive in subscription revenue. And reports from late July indicate that Bari Weiss has in fact met with David Ellison, the son of Oracle founder Larry Ellison and soon to be owner of CBS News, about a possible acquisition of the publication. So it's important to know what type of, influences, what kind of influencing factors lead to the type of reporting we're consuming here in the United States. That's why independent sources who are truly independent and have values, have morals, want to get accurate information to the people, they're the most valuable platforms in the country. And I hope everyone is just mindful about what they're consuming, what's influencing the news that they're consuming, and question everything, question us. I like that as long as it's fair, because if I get something wrong, I want to make sure I correct it. And you know what? I'm human. I have my own biases, and I do want to be checked on that, because at the end of the day, what's more important to me is that I'm doing right by my audience and I'm getting you guys accurate information and not feeding into this slop that makes up American media. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by a, I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of, making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd. But it is kind of look Cool. Who has Legos? Oh no. He's taken apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team.
David Sorrell, Nina Turner. Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Chang.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, you know, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, you know, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated? Or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is monopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like, how is that like at one level it's like, this is what we're talking about now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both worked to achieve, and I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making you happy.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy experience. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
Back on the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. We got another hour and a half for you guys, including the members only episode. Make sure you're checking that out. Hit the join button to become a member. Jonathan Boris-Johnny wrote in, speaking of members on the YouTube member section, Anna's on fire today.
I am on fire today.
It sounds like a fair assessment, okay? War Dragon says, Anna, you are not alone. We need better left-wing leaders.
Yes.
You're here.
We definitely do.
Luis Alfieri says, Anna being animated over this is normal reaction. She speaks for a lot of us. Here again. Chaz Reborn says, yeah, but it's too late for them to change what the normies have already learned about Israel and Gaza on TikTok.
Yeah.
Man, I couldn't agree more. And Israel couldn't agree more. That's why Israel's been trying to shut down TikTok here in America for a number of years now. They don't like that TikTok is showing the reality of their war crimes, as several senators have said on the record, that it was Israel that was really pushing them, not the fact that, oh my God, the Chinese are gonna
They're
have
so
our
worried
information.
about our data, Cenk. Our government is super worried about our data.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, all right.
Okay, I keep going. DJ Payne says on Super Chat, I appreciate the honest work you all at TYT are doing. I'll take brutal honesty and good journalism over mainstream news all day, every day, capitalized. Thank you, DJ Payne, we appreciate it. Look, we've been doing honest reporting since 23 years ago when we started. And so from time to time, Democrats get mad at us. Sometimes, certainly a lot of times, Republicans get mad at us. The mainstream media gets mad at us. The different factions get mad at us. Why do they get mad at us? Including sometimes what seems to be our own side.
They hate us for our freedom.
But in reality, kind of.
Literally.
Right? So no, seriously, guys, because think about it for a second. If you're not 100% on the same ideology of whatever tribe, corporate Democrats, radical right, whatever it might be, whatever the tribe is and the bubble is. If you're not 100% in their camp, they hate you, okay? And so they want to drive you out, heretics, etc. But we're not in any camp. Why are we not in any camp? Because we actually care about the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth is not in any particular camp. I happen to think, Anna is very proud, independent, etc. I happen to think that left-wing populists have it mostly figured out, right? And I think that is the best policy proposals in the country. It doesn't mean that's even perfect. I'm a left-wing populist and we're not perfect, right? And so I do two different things. I drive for positive change in the world, right? And so does TYT overall. But here on the show, and the most important thing that we do is boldly pursue the truth. That's in our mission statement, okay? And so when you boldly pursue the truth, you're gonna piss people off. And every once in a while you're gonna say, oh, that faction is wrong, and that faction is wrong, and that faction is wrong, because they happen to be wrong at that time. And the minute you say any faction is wrong, that's it. It's war, they hate you, they're gonna try to take you down, etc. So we just keep bouncing around getting attacked by the different factions because we're in the truth business. And I would hope that that's what you would want. And now, of course, for our members, that is exactly what they want. And that's why we're the oldest show in online history, because in the short term, the truth involves a lot of pain. In the long term, it sets you free. Okay, we got to take a quick break here. We'll be right back.
Wait, what? No.
No, I thought I was getting the break signal. Okay, no, okay, you're in charge.
Let's do a story. Then we take a break.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Republican Senator Josh Hawley reigniting his push for the Pelosi Act, which would ban members of Congress from trading and holding stocks. What do you think the chances are that this gets passed, and what kind of support do you feel like you have, and what kind of support do you think you still need?
Well, the support is bipartisan. And listen, in terms of support, you can't have better support than the President of the United States. And the President has endorsed now a stock trading ban for members of Congress. That's a huge boost.
I don't think so. Not so fast, Senator Hawley, because it doesn't appear that President Donald Trump is supportive of this effort. And we're gonna get back to him in just a minute. But despite originally having the support of Trump for his proposal to ban members of Congress from trading individual stocks, Josh Hawley is now facing quite a bit of heat from the White House. And that's because the ban was expanded to also include the president and the vice president.
Yeah.
Oops. It's amazing how corrupt our government is.
So let me just summarize here, because this shows you exactly what American politics is about. So when the Democrats were in charge, Nancy Pelosi was completely against banning insider stock trading in the Capitol, and Donald Trump was totally in favor. Republicans were in favor. Oh, golly gee, we'd love to do it if we were in charge, but we just can't, right? And the Democrats were like, no, we can't, it's not right. Now, the Republicans are in charge, and all of a sudden, as you're gonna see in the story, Pelosi's in favor. Pelosi's in favor? Come on.
Yeah.
She's pretending to be in favor. Now Trump is flipped against it. You see what they're doing, right? Well, we've been telling you all along. Good cop, bad cop.
It's so pathetic. They're all corrupt, they're all embarrassing, and they should all be shamed, okay? Now, in this case, Hawley proposed something good and voted in favor of something good, so I'll give him credit, even though I think this bill is gonna be doomed when it comes to a floor vote. We'll get to that in just a minute, but let me just fill you in on the details as we have them in the moment. So the so-called Pelosi Act would prevent lawmakers from buying or trading securities, commodities, futures, options, trusts, and other comparable holdings. It would also, essentially ban the blind trust, which is a common tactic that you'll get from, either the president who has business interests and wants to continue being vested in those business interests. And so he'll say, oh, I've got a blind trust now, don't worry about it. Now, this legislation, if it passes, would ban that. Now, in order to move the bill forward by getting Democrats on board, Hawley included the president and vice president, in addition to congressional members, in his ban on certain investments. The White House's Office of Legislative Affairs caught wind and started pushing back, sources tell Axios. A White House official said the concern is over the change that would impact the executive branch, not necessarily over the congressional stock trading ban. Quote, this was a last minute deal struck to include the executive branch. By the way, it should include the executive branch. Okay, anyone who's serving as a public servant who gets these closed door briefings and has information that the rest of us are not privy to should be banned from trading individual stocks. Okay, why should Congress be banned, but members of the executive branch not be banned? That doesn't make any sense. But let me read the rest of that for you. So it would include the executive branch equities without torching base with the White House. Touching base. Without touching base with the White House to discuss potential Article 2 concerns. Any pause comes purely from potential Article 2 infringement, not the congressional ban. So in other words, they said, we're fine with Congress people being subject to the ban, we just don't want it to affect us. Okay, meaning that's what the White House is saying. Now, Article 2 of the Constitution establishes the executive branch of the federal government. So to appease the White House, Hawley added in a carve out for Donald Trump. And so the change would make it so that the full force of the law would only apply to future administrations, not the Trump administration. Now, Trump and Vance would be able to maintain their current holdings, but like Congress people, they wouldn't be able to buy or sell stocks. Okay, so basically keep what you have, but you're not gonna be able to engage in additional trading. So earlier today, sparks absolutely flew as the Pelosi Act, as they've named it, was debated by Republicans and Democrats in the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. Here is Hawley making his case.
We have an opportunity here today to do something that the public has wanted us to do for decades, and that is to ban members of Congress from profiting on information that frankly only members of Congress have in the buying and selling of stock. 86% of Americans say that members of Congress should not be able to buy and sell shares of stock, individual stock, while they are members of this body, and they are absolutely correct. And the reason is, you can see it, there was just another ethics referral in the House last week. We've seen the former Speaker of the House make millions of dollars in profits. We've seen members of both parties, I'm sad to say, be investigated for their stock trades. And the reason for all of this is that quite frankly, members of this body are privy to information that the normal person just is not. Nobody really believes that the information that we get isn't valuable. It is quite valuable, which is why back during COVID, you saw members of Congress of both parties engage in a flurry of stock trading right after they were getting COVID briefings. Were members of the public getting those briefings? They were not. I practice what I preach. I don't have individual stocks. I don't trade in stocks. I'm not a billionaire, unlike others on this committee.
Well, that might be the reason why others on the committee, namely the Republicans, disagreed with what Hawley was trying to do here. In fact, Ron Johnson made this ridiculous argument against the legislation. Take a look.
One of the big problems we have here in Washington, D.C. is there's so very few bureaucrats, staff members, members of Congress who have any experience in, which means very little knowledge of, and I would say very little sympathy for the private sector. How difficult it is to run a business, how much more difficult our laws, and we passed a bunch from here again today, make it to build a business, to produce products, to create great paying jobs. It's a hard thing to do. And we make it very unattractive for people to step up to the plate and run for office or potentially serve in office. So this piece of legislation, really, it's legislative demagoguery. We do have insider trading laws. We have financial disclosure. Trust me, we have financial disclosure. The press pays attention to it. So I don't see the necessity of this. I can imagine all kinds of unintended consequences. You could relabel this law, quite honestly, the Career Politician Protection Act.
What are the unintended consequences, Ronnie boy? That you can't do insider trading anymore and get rich off of insider information that the rest of us don't know anything about, which by the way, if we engage in the same behavior, we'd go to prison for a long, long time. What was that? But you know what? He did make a fair argument. There was a fair argument in there. You might have missed it, Cenk.
I did miss it.
America really is a little rough on private business.
Oh yeah.
Poor
corporations can't catch a break.
They really can't. They really can't. And so we need to allow our lawmakers to engage in insider trading so businesses Wait, how does that help businesses again?
Yeah, that seems to just help you when you invest in businesses with insider information.
Yeah.
Doesn't really help the business too much. And I mean, the idea that the average man in this country has too much power and you're abusing poor corporations.
No, poor corporations.
And it's a good thing you sent Ron Johnson to the Senate, Wisconsin, to protect corporations from the average American. Because, God forbid, we overuse our power to fight back against corporate rule.
I watched Ron Johnson's interview on Tucker Carlson's podcast where he tried to fashion himself as like a warrior for working class Americans. He's scum. He's a liar.
Yeah.
He's a scumbag liar. Know that.
Yeah, he's as big a corporatist as it gets. So, all right, look, it's just shell games, guys. You know it's shell games. So now Trump is gonna turn around and say, oh no, golly gee, now that it applies to me, I don't want it. And Pelosi, when it applied to her, didn't want it. So look, I want you to stop giving credit. I'm certainly going to do it for talking, okay? So from time to time, it makes a difference. Like if you were gonna, hey, are we gonna call it a genocide or are we gonna make excuses for it? So there's some limited times when language makes a difference, okay? But when you're a politician, 99% of the time, I need you to vote the right way. And I'm not interested in your BS, especially when you're out of power. So do I believe that Nancy Pelosi is really now going to turning around? If she was the last critical vote, there's no way she would vote for it. The Democrats are so enormously full of crap. But again, so are the Republicans. Oh, I want the Epstein files released. Oh, we're in charge? No, I don't want them released at all, right? Every time, every issue, good cop, bad cop, shell game. I mean, aren't we exhausted by it? And now I'm sorry, one last thing that you guys are probably exhausted by it, but yes, and who covers for them? Every time, mainstream media. Oh, look at that, they just had a change of heart. Oh, come on.
So, look, spoiler alert, every Republican on the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs voted against this. But I gotta give you a little more of their pathetic statements because Rick Scott went as far as to call this proposal disgusting. Take a look.
I've got a business background. But what I was just accused of is making money and somehow I can't be fair and do things the right way. So I think it's disgusting what is going on here. I completely agree with you. We've got to stop people from trading stocks. But this is way different. This is an attack against the president, attack against the vice president. That's what this is. So I think it's wrong.
Cheating and scamming is really part and parcel when it comes to Ron Johnson and his history. I'm sorry, that was Rick Scott. Ron Johnson was earlier. Rick Scott committed the largest Medicaid fraud scam in the country, in American history. So his statement really isn't that surprising, but it is amazing that he manages to say things like that with a straight face. Cenk, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I do. So he took so much money out of taxpayers' pockets, okay? Over $1 billion. So he's one of the biggest, like his company was convicted of one of the largest frauds in American history when he was the CEO. What makes me sick is that he was not even tried. They said the company admitted guilt. They did it. They had 2 sets of books. So the CEO made a very active decision to defraud the American people, okay? And since they didn't try him, and since they did this nonsense thing of, oh, the company is guilty, but since the company is not a person, there are almost no consequences. You have to return some portion of the money you stole. Wow. So you know what they did as Rick Scott was leaving? They gave him a $300 million exit package, a golden parachute, for a robbery well done against the American people. So then this guy, you just saw him say like, I can't believe that anyone would accuse us of having inappropriate business transactions. Dude, you're known as one of the biggest frauds in American history. Are you kidding me? And by the way, the people of Florida, how big of suckers are you? How many times are you gonna elect this guy? He literally made his fortune robbing you. These are criminals that are in our Congress.
Oh yeah. Full to the brim with criminals, there's no question about that. Now look, they did amend the legislation again to provide that limited carve out for Trump. And ultimately, the committee did vote to advance the bill, which applies to Congress members and their spouses and future presidents and vice presidents. So the vote was 8-7, meaning it passed. All Republicans voted against it. Hawley was the only Republican who voted in favor of it. You know, in recent stories, we've been kind of harsh toward Hawley because I can't really figure out if he's serious about fighting for average Americans. In this case, he voted the right way. He didn't just talk about it, he put action behind his words, so I'll give him credit for that. But it seems almost guaranteed that the bill will fail on the Senate floor unless there's a major turnaround from Republicans.
Of course.
Now, asked about the bill earlier today, Trump told reporters that he liked Hawley's bill conceptually, but would have to look at it more closely. And then shortly after that, he lashed out at Josh Hawley on Truth Social despite being given an exemption, right? So here's what he wrote. Why would one Republican senator, Josh Hawley from the great state of Missouri, join with all of the Democrats to block a review sponsored by Senator Rick Scott and with the support of almost all other Republicans of Nancy Pelosi's stock trading over the last 25 years? The information was inappropriately released just minutes before the vote, very much like sabotage. The Democrats, because of our tremendous achievements and success, have been trying to target me for a long period of time, and they're using Josh Hawley, who I got elected twice, as a pawn to help them. I wonder why Hawley would pass a bill that Nancy Pelosi is in absolute love with. Okay, look, I get it. You guys all want to do insider trading. I get it. And you're gonna do insider trading. You're gonna continue doing it. You're gonna manipulate the markets. You're going to vote on legislation, by the way, in Congress, depending on which companies you're invested in and how that legislation is gonna impact the companies you're invested in. That's what's happening right now as we speak. Trump is in favor of it. The vast majority of members of Congress are in favor of it. There's a select few who see a problem with it and want to do something about it. But make no mistake about it, we as American voters need to do better, okay? Because we have scum full to the brim in the halls of Congress.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think we're going to do better. And I think that the reason why the American people are going to quote unquote do better is because media is changing. So before, you didn't know about Rick Scott. You think the people of Florida know that he stole $1.7 billion from the American people? I mean, look, I ran for Congress back in 2020. You know why? Because I wanted to be in a position where I could use my mic and my power to say, hey, Senator Scott, where's our $1.7 billion? Until you give back $1.7 billion, tall glass of shut up juice. You don't get to talk about anything, you criminal, you crook. How come Democrats don't say that? Why is that so hard? Oh my God, fighting Republicans, fighting anyone in Congress so hard. And here's what I'll guarantee you about the Democrats, same thing for the Republicans. So now when the Democrats, if they get back into power, and it's corporate Democrats that are in charge.
Nothing will change.
Everyone in both parties will flip instantly on this issue. The Republicans will say, oh, we got to stop insider trading. And the Democrats will go, well, it's complicated, it's nuanced, blah, 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 blah. It's just nonstop lying. And before mainstream media would be like, they're not lying. They all had a change of heart. Oh, look at that, they had another change of heart. And then they did it again after the election. But we're morons, we can't figure out the news at all, right? But since that was the only media you had, you couldn't tell. Now, a lot of people know. Word is getting out that all the politicians are crooks and all the mainstream media guys are liars. So now they can't contain things. They're like, no, Israel, special ally, shut up, shut up, shut up. Epstein files shouldn't be really, shut up, shut up. Insider trading should be allowed in Congress, shut up, shut up. Well, you can't contain it. It's too many moles that have now popped up here in online media. So they're getting overwhelmed. Now Republicans are pissed at Trump for this.
So Hawley has told reporters that he would never cooperate with Democrats to hurt Trump. He said he hopes to speak with Trump soon.
Oh, quote, what a coward.
Quote, I want to see the bill passed and signed, so if there's further changes he wants to make, I'm happy to make them.
Oh yeah, okay, then why'd you bother? Why did you pretend to do this? Because it's for PR, right?
Okay, but hold on, just pause for a second. I do want this bill passed. I think that there's a very, very slim to impossible chance that it is gonna pass. But whatever, if you have to cut the executive branch out of it and only have this bill applied to members of Congress, he should try to pass it that way anyway. And by the way, for the Democrats who are like, no, we're gonna vote no, unless it includes Trump. No, you should vote yes.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's mask off. It's a total mask off moment if you're pretending like you're gonna vote against the bill because it doesn't include Trump.
Okay, so if I was the Democratic leader, what I would do there is, oh, you want to ban insider trading in Congress? Great. I wanted it from day one. Now we finally got 1 or 2 honest Republicans happy to take the vote. We ban it, okay? Now the next day I introduce a bill doing the same thing with the White House. Now watch these crooks vote against it, okay? So now you didn't get the White House because they'll vote against it. But number one, you did the right thing and you get credit for it. Number two, you show the hypocrisy of the Republicans. And number three, you seem like you're the one honest party because you actually got a bill passed. And the Republicans refuse to hold themselves accountable when they control the White House. That's obviously the right strategy. You think they don't know that? They actually do know that. But here's what I predict will happen. When he takes the White House out, forget the next time Democrats are in power. Democrats will flip now. They'll go, oh, no, you're not including the White House. Golly gee, we decided not to look into Pelosi's trades. We decided not to look into all the Democratic candidates' trades and legislators. So look, when I say Republican or Democrat on this show, it's annoying, but I should clarify it every time, okay? There's all the difference in the world between the politicians and the voters. So when I said a second ago, hey, some Republicans are beginning to hold Trump to account on this, it's beginning, and I mean the voters. I don't mean the politicians.
Exactly.
Right, and the politicians are like Hawley. Oh, Daddy called, and I'm a populist, but I have to ask Daddy what he wants, and I need to pamper his ass and go, oh, none of you guys are allowed to do it, but Daddy is. Daddy, you can cheat all you want, Daddy. That's not a populist, that's a bitch. Yes. So, look, I appreciate the effort, and if he gets it passed and it's fair and honest, we're gonna give credit where credit is due, right? But right now, all I've seen from Hawley is a lot of this. Oh, I like Medicaid. Oh, I'll vote to cut it, but I didn't want to cut it. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, I want to do this act, but Daddy says no. Blah, 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 blah.
Look, if Hawley is real about wanting to get these bills passed, he needs to understand your power doesn't come from Daddy Trump. Your power comes from the people. It comes from your constituents. And your constituents want this. I know that for a fact because Democratic voters and Republican voters want Congress to work for them. They don't want self-interested, greedy, grubby little creeps who do insider trading and have no interest in serving the people. So how about you serve the people and worry less about Daddy Trump doing you favors? Okay, because look at Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie has values that guide him. I might not agree with him politically on a whole host of issues, but I value the fact that he is guided by his principles. So Hawley, who are you? What do you want to actually accomplish? What do you want your legacy to be?
I know who Hawley is. I'll just say it real quick. Hawley's a guy who figured out a new angle. He figured out, populism. I got it. That's how Trump won. And by the way, do you know how stupid the rest of the senators are that they didn't figure that out? Like the Democrats are still searching for which words should we use, and and which consultants and blah blah blah, right? And the Republicans not. At least he figured out, oh right, I'm supposed to pretend to be a populist.
Yep.
But if Daddy ever checks me, then I'll go back to doing whatever he wants. I mean, I'll cut the living crap out of Medicaid and take your health care away, but I'll say nice words about it because I'm supposed to pretend to be a populist. And that's the situation we're in right now.
When we come back, I'm gonna tell you just how many homes have been snatched up by investors, making it harder for you to buy a house. We'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to Super Chat first. History Speaks writes in a couple of times, says, Israel supporters starving to death a child who looked healthy pre-war doesn't count if he has pre-existing conditions / special nutritional needs. How dare you blood libel Israel by reporting this? This is how genocidal narcissists talk. Yeah, Oh, I mean, by the way, think about that, right? Oh, so this kid had a pre-existing condition. One of the babies that they starved at least 88 children already, right? But this is what they always do. Like, they destroyed every hospital in Gaza. But the first time that one of them was said, how dare you say we would hit hospitals, blood libel, and then they destroyed every hospital. So what happened? So I guess they think they're doing their own blood libel. I don't. It's all, everything out of Israel is propaganda, extreme propaganda. But in this case, listen to what this brother's saying, because he's right. He's saying, Israel's saying that, look, if your kid was already sick, we starved him to death, and that's okay. It's not our fault. It's your kid's fault for having a pre-existing condition. So if you thought our system was brutal, where for a while we didn't let you have healthcare if you had a pre-existing condition, Israel's like, oh, well, if you have a pre-existing condition, we're gonna murder you. And we're gonna murder a lot of other people, right?
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to complain, okay? Because of one person, one baby. They always, come on. And New York Times, man, sometimes they do good reporting, and other times they're just, they're so solicitous of Israeli ass. Like, oh, Israeli ass, how can we serve you? Please, let me serve you. Oh, I'm so sorry for ever criticizing you, Israel. Just do journalism, you cowards. And a lot of them aren't cowards. They love Israel, and that's why they lie on their behalf. History Speaks also writes in, to counter deniers of mass shootings of aid seekers in Gaza, you guys should cover a new drop site news piece by my dear friend Heba, who is in Gaza. She describes hunger in Gaza / how her unarmed 14-year-old cousin was shot in the head seeking aid. He was in a coma for a day but survived. He is struggling.
I first of all, am so grateful to Drop Site News. It's one of the most valuable publications. If you're not reading Drop Site News regularly, please do so. And those brave journalists in Gaza, geez. So I will check out that piece. Thank you for letting me know about it.
Yeah, look, as other people tear down, we try to build up. Drop Site News is great, Lever is great, Ken Klippenstein is great. Go find these great truth tellers. By the way, Zad Jelani,
excellent.
Lee Fong, okay? Good, excellent truth tellers.
Yes.
And go read their materials. They're infinitely better than mainstream media. You'll be way better off for it. Anna's Substack, terrific. Check that out, and her pieces in Real Clear Politics. Those
investigations, Real Clear Investigations.
Sorry, Real Clear Investigations. Those are investigative pieces. Titan says, and when you really look at it, there isn't any daylight between them on major issues. Main difference is rhetoric. They use the rhetoric that they use, but policy-wise, they're not far off. Obama uses massive popularity to deliver a Republican healthcare bill. Yes, of course, true, guys. So there's something that I lived through that not everybody did, and it gives me a different perspective on it. So like during the Obama years, when I was criticizing him from the left, Democrats and mainstream media were like, you right-wing Republic, how dare you? You racist, how dare you? This is the benighted Barack Obama. You cannot question him. And it was oppressive beyond measure. So now the fact that you guys recognize the things that they did is amazing. All right, back on TYT, Cheng and Anna, also Edwin Baez and whatever F you.
Oh my God, I love that handle.
All right, good to have you as part of the Young Turks. Remember, you're getting all the content whenever you want. By the way, if you have a YouTube member account, you want something on our website, go to tyt.com/connect. Connect both your accounts, obviously free. Once you pay for membership, you've got it everywhere, okay? So thank you guys, we appreciate you. Anna.
Okay, this next story, there's a lot of bad stuff happening in the world and in the country, but this one really got my blood boiling because all I could think about is what our governor's been up to as this crisis continues to grow. So let's get into it. An alarming new report shows the infiltration of investors into the California housing market. And honestly, it shows no signs of slowing down, especially considering the fact that we have a governor here who has no interest in serving the people of California. He's focusing on his presidential aspirations, even though he's destroyed the state. And our state legislature is more concerned about passing bills that force workers in the state to take trainings on avoiding workplace violence annually. So at least I know that I'm not supposed to slap any of my coworkers around, okay? But God forbid they pass any legislation that reins in these investors who are essentially snatching up residential real estate in an era when we have a housing shortage and an ongoing housing crisis. So according to Batch Data, a data tracker that collects information from property records, California's overall percentage of investor home ownership sits at 19%, Cenk, 19%. 1 in 5 homes snatched up by an investor.
Yeah, and that's actually a tiny bit lower than the national average, which is at 20%. So one of the parts of the populist plank on our website, populistplank.com, if you want to go through there, is ban private equity from buying residential homes. Because the more people are buying homes as an investment, whether it's private equity or others, obviously it's driving the price up.
Big time.
And then you're about to see in California, the prices are through the roof, right? And this is part of the reason why. Because there's a lot more demand from those houses because you've got these institutional investors, Wall Street coming in to buy these homes. So that's why we're having this problem.
This story is California centric, but this is impacting everyone across the country. So I'll give you an example. When I was in rural Maine to do Tucker Carlson's podcast, wonderful woman that I met, Jen, she drove me from the airport to the place I was staying in. And she was talking about how she and her family saved and saved and saved in order to put a down payment on a home. There's no homes available to buy. And so even in rural Maine, they're running into the same issue. So let's get to the details.
Can I just say real quick on that, Anna?
Yes.
So Hawaii and Alaska are the 2 states that have the most amount of homes bought by investors. Rural Alaska, isn't that interesting? And the 2 other states that are at the top are Arkansas and West Virginia.
Yep.
So this is partly my theory on that is partly because in places like West Virginia, there's no one to help you. So they could just swoop up all the houses, no restrictions, no nothing.
Cenk, there's no one to help us here either.
Yeah, I hear you, but no one's paying attention in those places, and Wall Street's going nuts.
So as I mentioned earlier, about 19% of the residential real estate in California has been purchased by investors. That comes out to about 1.45 million homes statewide, okay. But the rate is actually higher in the state's mountain regions, such as Sierra County, which has an 83% share of its homes owned by investors, compared with coastal Ventura County at just 14%. In 7 California counties, Sierra, Trinity, Mono, Alpine, Plumas, Modoc, and Calaveras, investors owned more than 50% of homes. Fantastic. Now, California's most urban counties had lower shares of investor-owned homes, with Los Angeles County at 15%, and San Francisco, San Diego, and Orange counties at 16%. That's still very high when we have a housing shortage. So while our garbage governor, again, Gavin Newsom, has his presidential aspirations top of mind, he doesn't care about anything that's going on in his own state because he's a pathetic scumbag. There is at least one state assembly member who's looking to crack down on the largest corporate investors. So great, we've got one, Cenk. So that's Democratic Assembly member Alex Lee. He's proposing legislation to cap the number of single family homes corporations can buy in the state. He says, quote, "I would say it's housing crisis profiteering. So as we produce more housing, we don't want the market to be eliminated or narrowed because of those corporate actors." Alex Lee, thank you. Because my big concern, and I've been talking about this and no one seems to care, but it's important. So there's been a lot of talk about loosening up zoning restrictions and various codes that we have in the state in order to spur new housing development. And I actually think that's a good idea. I do think that there's overregulation in California as it pertains to being able to build new homes, okay? But if you don't deal with private equity or the problem that we're having with investors coming in and scooping up homes, well, then we're gonna continue running into the same problem. We wanna make sure that that residential real estate is reserved for residents of California who want to buy a place to live for themselves and their families. So I love the way that Alex Lee framed that. Now, Texas-based company Invitation Homes, which is a major institutional investor in single-family homes all across the country, they don't like that, okay? They don't like this at all. They responded to his proposal by saying, this is a tired narrative that lawmakers often promote that distracts from the real causes of high housing costs in markets like California. So I disagree. I think this is a problem. I think we have multiple problems when it comes to housing in America, especially in major cities. Yes, institutional investors, that's a big problem. Foreign investors who don't even live here, snatching up and buying residential real estate. That's another problem that needs to be banned, okay? And then the other issue is the lack of housing that's being built. So we do need to spur more housing development. And luckily on a federal level, Congress is working on something. I don't know if it's actually going to make a difference or if it's going to pass. But notably, Invitation Homes didn't say what the real causes of the housing crisis happen to be. And keep in mind, in 2024, the company paid $2 million in a settlement after the California Attorney General sued Invitation Homes for price gouging. So Lee's proposal did pass through the Assembly, and now it's heading to the Senate Judiciary Committee next. But in reality, California is actually below the average when it comes to investor-owned homes. So things are bad in California, but it's worse in other parts of the country. The state ranks 36th in the country and just a shade under 20% national average. And so tourist-heavy states and states with smaller populations, to Cenk's point earlier, did have higher shares of investor-owned homes. And those states include Hawaii at 40%, Alaska at 35%, Vermont at 31%, West Virginia at 30%, and Wyoming at 30%. And the trend continues. Overall, investors purchased more homes in the first quarter of 2025, with the total rising to 26.8% of all residential property sales.
Yeah, you know who was onto this before anyone else? John Dutton. He would not let them buy his land. Okay, all right, I'm talking about Yellowstone, the show. Okay, seriously though, you see that Wyoming stat, you see all those rural areas they're snatching up the homes in. Okay, number one, yes, some people want vacation homes, and yes, there are a variety of different people who are buying these. Some only have 1 to 5 homes, whatever only means in that context. Some have 5 to 10 homes. And then there's the bankers who have infinite number of homes. And it's because they're buying for their company, obviously. But if they succeed, guys, what winds up happening, the most important thing is, not only does it sometimes ruin your way of life, as the show Yellowstone showed, but more importantly, it's gonna turn us all into renters. And then we're not creating any wealth for our families. Instead, Wall Street and the already wealthy are creating those assets and that wealth. And then we're further attached to our corporate jobs because we got to pay the rent, and the rent keeps going up, and we have no wealth. And our healthcare is attached to the job. Now our ability to, live have shelter is attached to our job, etc. So then they're gonna have us by the you-know-where. So we have to stop this before they get the critical mass and buy so many homes that we all get turned into indentured servants.
We need some cops on the beat. It's sad that there's literally like one assembly member in the state of California who's on this issue. Anyway, we gotta take a break. When we come back for our final segment, we'll talk a little bit about how authoritarianism is really creeping up here in the United States. That's not according to me, but it is according to one organization.
All right, let's go to our members on TYT.com. Benjamin writes in, LOL, TYT is the only channel I've ever got those bell notifications from on YouTube. So annoying. How honest are we? I already read the comment. I knew he was saying that. But I'll deal with it because it reminded me of old school yesterday. And that's why I'm reading it. Guys, when I tell you to ring the bell, yeah, look, sometimes a bunch of videos come out and you're like, oh, okay. But then mainly it tells you when we're live. Oh, right, old school's on tonight, right? So that's why ringing the bell actually helps. And there's of course different ways that you can set your notifications. And of course it doesn't cost you anything. Wolf Dragon Donna says, we're here for the truth. Operation Joy is pretty dope too. Appreciate it. We had a great Operation Joy last night. So make sure if you're a member, you check that out. Again, if you're a member, whether you're through YouTube or our website, you can get any of our content, all of our content anytime you want. Don Dada Dragon says, and I thank you for consistently pointing out how shadowy the non-profit industry is.
Yes.
It's psychologically beaten into us that they tend to have righteous intentions.
Yes.
Anna won't be fooled. Follow the money, Lebowski.
I love you. Thank you.
Yeah, like the nonprofits some of them are great, absolutely critical, but the good ones are now being used as human shields by the bad ones, right? And the ones that are connected to politicians, houses. You know who invented this, by the way? I don't know that they invented it, but they really professionalized it. The Clintons. So they did the Clinton Foundation to house Hillary Clinton's staff for her presidential run, pretending to do charity. They mainly got money from the Saudis and foreign governments and corporations. And then as soon as she started running for office, they're like, yeah, we don't need it anymore. And they got rid of it and haven't restarted it, okay? So that scam of nonprofits now, the Clintons won as usual, and it's everywhere now. And so people house their staff, their allies, and pay them a lot of money through those nonprofits while not solving anything. So their corporate donors are happy, their allies are happy, they pretend to be doing things. I mean, that's California Politics 101. Make sure you're following Anna to get all the details on that. Over 9,000 says, I wish I would have noticed how two uniparty system worked when I was younger. Glad I started watching TYT, where I'd probably feel absolutely insane with the current gaslighting machines from both sides. Yes, everybody wake up. Both sides are gaslighting the living crap out of you. Eclectic writes in, and thank you for calling out Bernie today for refusing to call Israel's mass slaughter of Palestinians a genocide. He needs to stop playing nice with a genocidal regime and call a spade a spade. Look, from my point of view, Bernie has been a hero on a lot of these and being the first to recognize the Palestinians, the first to criticize Israel, etc. But I hear what you guys are saying. I don't think it's because he cares about Israel as much as, and yeah, he, obviously he lived there for a while, etc. But I think it's more, he deals with these establishment guys every day. Like he thinks Joe Biden is a friend and stuff. And in their bubble, like saying that Israel's committing a genocide is like the most unthinkable thing ever. Bernie, you're not gonna do that, right? Only lunatics think it's a genocide. Like Washington is totally removed from reality. They're a different planet. So on his planet, he's one of the bravest fighters in the world on this issue. And he is. K-Dragon Battle for Truth and Justice says, the fact that 32% of Americans support genocide and are willing to pay for it out of their tax money makes me kind of ill. But yes, but remember that was like in the 90s before, right? So because of mainstream media liars who told you that Israel's our ally and all right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Jamichael Collins. Thanks for hitting the join button and becoming a member. You're now one of us. I'm watching you, who's a YouTube member, said, I like solo Anna. Hey, wait a minute.
Okay, that was a comment when I was literally hosting solo. I just didn't get to it.
I know, I'm kidding around.
By the way, a lot of people don't like solo Anna. They like it when we're together.
They like this?
They like it when we're together.
Okay. Anyways, no, I love it. Thank you for writing in. And Krista Nomad makes up for it by saying, Massey Cenk for president? No, I'm kidding.
That would be an interesting ticket.
Yeah, well, you would have problems for no reason. Kana Massey, now we're having a conversation.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
Yes.
It's never gonna happen, so let's move on. So, this is not good. So a group of civil society organizations have released a watch list, and we're on it. Now, it's a watch list of countries at risk of losing their civil freedoms, including Turkey, El Salvador, Kenya, and the United States of America. Now look, they cited very specific reasons for why we're on this watch list. I'm gonna go through those reasons. We can decide whether or not this is fair. So the group that's put this watch list together is known as Civicus. The organization's Secretary General has stated that the United States appears to be sliding deeper into the quicksands of authoritarianism. Peaceful protests are confronted with military force, true. Critics are treated as criminals, true. Journalists are targeted, and support for civil society and international cooperation have been cut back. So 6 months into Donald Trump's second term, a bizarre assault on fundamental freedoms and constitutional safeguards has become the new normal. And look, the reason why I say true to some of the things that were brought up in that statement is because the military literally was sent to respond to anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles. That literally happened. And when there were protests against that, not from the protesters, although they weren't happy about it, but from the leaders of the state of California, Trump doubled down and sent more members of the military to respond to it, even though, by the way, to the military's credit, they didn't want to be deployed for these reasons. They thought it was wrong because the military is not supposed to be deployed against American citizens on US soil. So there's other things that I can get into. For instance, the first category is attacks against protests in the media. I mentioned the anti-ICE protests. Civicus also referenced 2 specific attacks against the media during anti-Trump protests. The first is the video that we actually covered of an Australian journalist who was covering the unrest and was targeted by a police officer. Take a look.
You just shut the fuck up. You okay?
There was another incident as well. Police detained Salvadoran journalist Mario Guevara, a US legal resident, while live streaming an anti-Trump No Kings peaceful protest in Georgia. Despite clearly identifying as press, authorities charged him with obstruction and unlawful assembly and transferred him to ICE custody, where he remains. He was a legal resident of the United States. It's insane. Civicus also cited the
but so to the things that Anna was talking about, yesterday we covered a story about how ICE said, well, we were going to arrest people in LA, and it turns out they let a whole bunch of them go because they arrested the wrong people. They hadn't done anything wrong. They didn't have any evidence on them. But one of the excuses that they gave was, well, those 2 girls had, quote, pre-assault indicators. What is that? What is it? It's a thought crime, right? So this is what tyrannical governments do. You didn't assault me, you didn't come close. It's actually kind of an Israeli trick. I had to preemptively attack all my Arab neighbors because of self-defense. So now that's what our government is using against our own civilians,
exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the legal residents who have been snatched up, the citizens who have been snatched up, the people who are going to court hearings legally snatched up, Donald Trump attacking 60 Minutes, ABC, CBS, the Wall Street Journal. If you criticize me, that's it. You owe me money. I demand a bribe. Otherwise, I'm not going to allow your mergers. I'm going to shut down all media who criticize me. From the guy who was for freedom of speech. And then the other factor that they cited was Israel. Israel makes us do such harsh crackdowns on our own citizens, and our own legal residents. So students who were protesting Israel, or even wrote an editorial, a political editorial about Israel, were arrested and threatened with deportation, etc. So it doesn't get any more authoritarian than you're not allowed to criticize your government or a foreign government, right? And if you exercise freedom of speech, we'll arrest you. So they've just absolutely trashed the First Amendment. And it's so deeply ironic coming from the guy who complained about cancel culture and said that freedom of speech was his top issue. What a joke, what an utter joke.
The other things that were cited by this group were the arrests of Mahmoud Khalil, Moshe Madawi, and of course also Rumyesa Öztürk, who was the Turkish national who was getting a PhD here in the United States, who just simply co-wrote an op-ed piece for her university's paper. So, these targeted attacks against anyone who dares speak out against the mass slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza, that was also cited. And I agree with citing that. That was wrong, obviously. What happened to Mahmoud Khalil? He missed the birth of his first child. He was in detention.
He was in prison for months and months. For all he did was criticize Israel, a foreign government. So this is disgusting. This isn't what America is supposed to be. This isn't what our Constitution is. So look, you know the flags that say, don't tread on me? This report's summary is basically saying, they're treading on you, brother. All right, we got a bonus episode coming up for you guys. That's amazing, including some podcasters that followed Joe Rogan to Texas, now having some regrets. Interesting. For the members, we'll be right back.